Hello everyone, today we're going to go through some details about Kafka. We're going to go through what Kafka is and kind of what it looks like at a high level involving consumers and producers and what that would actually look like on a simple architectural diagram. What is Kafka? So Kafka is used for building real-time streaming data pipelines and applications that use data streams. So Kafka combines messaging and storage and stream processing, allowing us to analyze both. So you'll have some data that might be analyzed from Kafka that's stored for a very long period of time and almost treated like a database, and then you'll have other information coming from Kafka that you don't really care about once it's consumed. So maybe there's some real-time data that you only really care about for the first 5 minutes that it lives, and then after that you may want to store it somewhere in a database for future analytics, but your applications don't really care about it. So one way we could think about this is for microservices. So for microservices, if you have one type of microservice, microservice A, and once that has sent out a message on what needs to be done next, once that message has been consumed, you don't really want to keep it around because it's no longer any use. But if you had some information coming in from, let's say, a piece of hardware that you had, and maybe that hardware device is constantly sending you in data, you might want to run different batch jobs to analyze that particular type of data at different stages. So for example, maybe you have real-time data that you're doing analytics on, but then maybe every day you run a batch job, and that batch job goes and does a larger aggregation on that whole 24-hour period of data. But we're going to get into that now in a little bit on what it looks like, or what it could potentially look like, depending on what your use case is. So the first thing that you kind of want to know or keep in mind when using Kafka is the idea of a pipeline or a data pipeline. So Kafka is used for building real-time streaming data pipelines and applications that use streams. So yeah, this is kind of a little bit wordy, but basically Kafka itself as a software can be used to produce data, and this data Kafka likes to call these streams. But a stream is just a continuous amount of data that's sent in. So it could be, as I said, a stream could be just all the information that's gathered over a day from a particular hardware device, or it could be a stream of data that's coming in from a microservice that you have. So you might have an email service, and that's a microservice that's constantly just sending you in emails. But when we look at pipelines, just keep in mind that you start off here on the left hand side with some data. This could be very basic data, and then once it's passed in through a large data pipeline, it's enriched. So there's more data added to the original data while this enriching process takes place. And you could have one operation that enriches a certain part of the original data, and then that next operation might add additional data to the original data, or you could have a second or third operation that's enriching the previous data. So you could have, let's say, operation 2 enriching operation 1's data, or you could have operation 3 enriching the data from operation 2. And then finally, when you come to the end of your pipeline, you'll have a brand new data set. It'll not look very familiar to the one you started with. Again, the original data might be there, but it will be much more enriched than it was when it started. So that's kind of just something to keep in mind, and what you'll be using Kafka for, or what Kafka is mainly used for, as far as data pipelines and processing data. And then when you kind of get into looking at the architectural bit of it and what the jargon is actually used when people talk about Kafka, the two main things are producers and consumers. So it says that Kafka combines messaging, storage, and streaming processing, allowing to analyze both historical and real-time data. So that's just saying that you can configure Kafka in many different ways. So you could have a producer, and a producer, maybe like the examples we used before, it could be a hardware device that's analyzing data and it's sending that to Kafka, and then that information from Kafka is being analyzed by, some type of custom software that you have. It could be a C# application, it could be a Python application, it could be a Java application, but it could be multiple. It could be multiple applications that's consuming the one Kafka topic. So, and then the next thing to also keep in mind is it can be used for real time, so that would be real time data coming in, but it can also be historical, because Kafka has a retention period, and the retention period just means how long it will store or keep that data for. That retention period can be indefinite, but it would be quite expensive to keep that data unless it's very important and it's needed on hand. It would make more sense to go and store that information that has been consumed in a database where you can retrieve it at a later stage, but the option is there. So let's go back to talking a little bit more about producers and consumers. So producers can be anything, so it could be web applications, it could be just applications in general, and they can be written in any language. So you could have a producer in Node.js, you could have a producer in Java, Spring Boot, or C#, .NET Core, and these producers will send information to Kafka, and then Kafka will arrange these in a few different ways. You'll have brokers, you'll have topics, and you'll have partitions. We're going to get into more details about what happens to them in the next video. Once this data is stored by Kafka, it can then be consumed by one consumer or many consumers. So in this example, we have one single Python application that's doing something. For example, it could be machine learning or something like that, and it's taken in details and information from multiple different producers, so multiple different applications, to try and produce some useful information. I hope you've gained a little bit more information about Kafka. Thank you for watching and have a good day.